I didn't come this far to just come this far.
Maybe you did.
Oh.
Ooh.
Moving forward with the Decker team. Moving forward together with the Decker team.
So we're excited that we've created for you free access to over 503 Life's Inside Track episodes where we share techniques, insider tips, really how to get the most out of your home and your life and even your wealth. And the great news is you get access to them from home, from the office, or on the go. So here's what's interesting. This is actually really interesting. What we're going to explore is sometimes you think you've gone too far to not go the other way.
It's kind of like the in for a penny, in for a pound.
Exactly.
Saying, right?
And I've said that 100 times more. I'm all in. I'm there. I'm here. So if I come this far, I'm going to finish it. If I have a dream, I don't want to stop short of my dream. I've invested too much to not follow through.
So how do we know when it is time to let go of that? Like, I've seen and helped people with their finances where a business dragged them down to bankruptcy. You know, like the business was failing, but they kept putting all their money in. They pulled money out of their RSPs, which would have been protected to support the business. And then they borrowed money on the house to protect the business. And then at some point, the business killed their finances. And they had
and everything else.
Well, they lost everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it wrecks the marriage.
Yeah.
So at what time is it say, how do we know? How do we know to pull the plug? How do we know it's okay? How do we set up language like in that book called Leadership is Language? How do we set up the precursing language that it's okay to pull the emergency brake, the pull on the bus, you know, the locks in the brakes or whatever? How do we know when it's okay to pull that?
I think the only way we can have some sense of it is if we actually predetermine what that might look like. Right? And so in one of the other episodes and segments that we've done, well, probably in quite a few of them, we talked a fair bit in detail about preparedness. And prepared to what's your walk away? What does it look like? Whereas if you haven't thought about it, you just keep getting pulled in and pulled in and pulled in. And just recently...
It's like an addiction.
It is like an addiction. And recently for us, we bought a property in Mexico and it wasn't going well. It was we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the next month or so just because we think there's some value here. Process, when it doesn't work, that's a big deal. And so it almost caused us not to follow through, which is another conversation for another day. But in advance, we had talked about what's the number that we're willing to go to? What's the number that's like we're not going over? How long are we willing to go on this journey? At what point is it just evidence that this is not the right place for us?
Yeah, and one that we offered on prior to that, they weren't responding in a timely fashion. And at some point you go, okay, that's enough. We're out.
And in advance, we kind of knew that our timeline in that particular case was 3 weeks. If it was over 3 weeks, we're out. Because we can't have to fight that hard for something that was supposed to be enjoyable.
Well, and something that they were supposed to want to sell, so they should give us a response.
Right. When it's on the market a year, I'm thinking that's an indicator. Yeah. So looking at what does it look like for you? Like, what is your parameters? Because I can give you our examples, but I can't give you what yours ought to be. But the things you want to think about is how long you're willing to go, what's the maximum amount of money, what conditions are you willing to let go of, what conditions aren't you willing to let go of, what terms are flexible, what terms aren't flexible, and then in terms of the actual house, what are the must-haves that are very weighty, and what are the nice-to-haves that we ought to let go of?
Yeah, and sometimes, like, you do a home inspection, for instance, and some things come up, and you go, ooh, am I willing to still buy the house, or do I call it quits on this house? Yes, I've put some money into an inspection and so forth. Do I ask for some of concessions? Do I ask for some money off? Do I ask for certain things to be repaired? Do I accept certain things? There's always, every house is going to have some things that need to be maintained or repaired or whatever. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you got to have that cutoff line where you say, okay, even if I've lost my $500 for the inspection, it's actually a good thing because the inspection was designed as insurance that I'm buying the right house for me, the right property that isn't going to cost me an arm and a leg to maintain.
Right. The question I constantly ask myself through this process and any other process is, can I still walk away? If I make this decision, whatever it is, to invest extra money or to do the next phase, will I still be prepared if it's wise? Can I still walk away? And as soon as I feel like emotionally I'm so invested that I can't walk away, that's when I'm going to get some support. I'm going to get some people around me that can be my voice of reason. So you said, what are the ways? Having a great person, third party that isn't emotionally invested. Like it can't really be Ken for me. It can't be my partner. So when it came to this property in Mexico, we had a couple of people that we let in on the inside said, these are the things, like when you hear my language start to change and like, I gotta have this place. When that kind of stuff starts to come out of my mouth, you know that's not me. You know that that's emotion talking and not reason. Mm-hmm. Versus if you can ask me the question, and you're welcome to ask me this question, can you walk away if you determine it's a bad idea?
Yeah. Can you say that the money was a good investment to find out that it was a bad idea and I'm out?
Right.
It's a mindset. It's understanding the reason for that inspection or whatever the case may be. There's a point of no return.
Yeah.
And we write up our contracts. Typically, if we put conditions in, you've got a week, 10 days, whatever. There's a point that you can back away. But once you fulfill those conditions, it's the point of no return. You're to close on it. My daughter, coming up on 15 years or just...
Yeah, 15
we're
years.
right at 15 years. She's been married. But I remember distinctly in the back of the church, in the room where you sit with the father and the bride, and we're waiting for everybody to be ready and prepared and moved in. And we're standing there and she's shaking a little bit. And I said to Candace, Candace, you can not go through with this right now. This is your tipping point. You can not go through it. I said, I don't care about the money that was spent on the wedding. I don't care about the embarrassment. I don't care about the people there. I don't even care about your fiance sitting at the front, what he's going to do. I don't care. This is your chance to say, I'm out. But if we walk down that aisle, it's for life. And you've made a commitment. And so I think I shook her up because she could barely walk down the aisle. She said, no, I want to do it. I go, okay. And she was holding my arm so hard, almost tipped me over to make it down the aisle. That's the tipping point. That's your turning point.
Exactly. And when it comes to real estate, it may not be quite that dramatic. And yet, even when somebody's typed an offer, you've asked me to type the offer, you've done your inspections, you're all in. But just before you release that unconditional offer, because once you release the unconditional offer, it's yours.
Yep.
Or it could be yours. Say no. Like, don't worry about the time invested until you've said a solid yes, meaning you've signed the final document. You can still say no.
Yeah. Thanks for the privilege of growing alongside you because we're passionate about us all being positioned for generational legacy.
Moving forward with the Decker team. Moving forward.